Single dad CEO reveals the surprising truth as his daughter inspires an amazing second chance. Jake Thompson gripped the steering wheel of his sleek sedan, rain drumming against the windshield. His mind raced with the chaotic demands of the day: mergers, product launches, and the relentless expectations of the tech industry. But beneath the surface of his professional facade lay a nagging doubt. As CEO of a thriving startup, he was proud of his accomplishments, yet the weight of being a single father to Mia felt heavier still. Could he truly balance his ambitious career with the needs of his spirited 16-year-old daughter? Was it possible to achieve greatness in both realms without sacrifice? Jake pushed the thoughts aside as he pulled into their driveway, barely noticing the splashes of puddled rain. Pulling off his tie, he felt the constriction around his neck mirror the tightening in his chest. Was he neglecting Mia? He hadn't meant to miss her basketball game last week. A quiet evening would surely make up for it, right? Just as the thought settled, he saw her shadow moving inside. A flicker of anxiety ignited. Something was off. That night, as they sat across from each other at the dinner table, the air thickened with unspoken words. Mia pushed her broccoli around with her fork, eyes downcast. When she finally spoke, her voice trembled. "Dad, something happened at school." She hesitated, swallowing hard. I got into it with some kids. It made me realize I need help." Jake's heart dropped. "What do you mean?" But Mia wasn't finished. "I can't shake this feeling of being overwhelmed. Mom used to code and I think I inherited that talent, but I've hidden it." There was a painful kind of honesty in her confession, one that hovered between vulnerability and hope. It ignited something in Jake, a flicker of potential they could explore together. But as the echo of her words hung in the air, dread began to settle in. What if he let her down while pursuing this venture? What if his peers saw him as inadequate, dismissing his struggle to juggle fatherhood and ambition? He remembered the comments he'd overheard, people questioning his ability to lead while being emotionally tethered to his daughter. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days blurred into weeks as Mia and Jake immersed themselves in the world of coding, each keystroke drawing them closer together. Yet, the shadow of self-doubt loomed larger. Jake faced volatility from investors, mockery from peers who saw his familial struggles as a weakness rather than inspiration. Each dismissive glance compounded fears he'd never be the father Mia needed or the leader his company deserved. Then, betrayal struck. A former colleague, out for vengeance, began sabotaging their project. Jake's angst shifted into a piercing dilemma. Should he confront this betrayal head-on, or uphold the values his father instilled in him: integrity, loyalty? The pressure mounted, like a heavy blanket stifling him in a room too small. As the deadline for their project neared, Jake felt cornered, torn between a desire for revenge that risked shattering what little they had built together. Jake stood in the midst of this storm, fingers trembling over the keyboard, his racing mind spiraling into uncertainty. Could he rise against the odds and nurture not just a vision, but the legacy he hoped to create for Mia? In the depths of his anguish, a singular realization loomed before him: the outcome of the venture wasn't merely about success, but rather the bond forged through the struggle. Would he resist the dark pull of retribution and honor his daughter's spirit, or would ambition tear them apart forever? Jake stared at the blinking cursor on his screen, feeling as if it mocked him. The weight of his decisions hung heavily in the air, suffocating the very progress he sought to achieve both for himself and for Mia. Silence engulfed the room until the sudden trill of his phone shattered his reverie. It was a message from Mia, a two-word encouragement: "You got this." Her unwavering trust pierced through Jake's fog of doubt. Suddenly, he found clarity in the chaos. He needed to confront his former colleague not in a spirit of vengeance, but to set a clear boundary. Taking a deep breath, he envisioned not just their failing project but the message it would send to Mia, that standing up for oneself was a non-negotiable trait of a true leader. He wasn't simply a father, but a role model. The next day, he gathered his courage and reached out to his former colleague, arranging a meeting in a public space. Security in numbers, he thought. As he walked into the cafe, the scent of freshly brewed coffee hung in the air, but the flavors of anxiety flooded his system. What had begun as an emotional confrontation now felt like the precipice of a professional fight. Jake took a seat and awaited his rival, reflecting on Mia's journey. They were both learning, yet their paths were fraught with obstacles. Could he turn this betrayal into a lesson for both of them? As the door swung open, revealing his foe, Jake steeled himself. "Jake," his colleague greeted coolly, taking a seat. The facade of professionalism hung thick between them. "I want to talk about the sabotage," Jake said, allowing his voice to steady with each word. "What you've done isn't just business, it's personal. You're hurting our team, our project, and the people who believe in us." His colleague leaned back with a smug expression. "You were never cut out for this, Thompson. You'll always be seen as the dad fighting for his daughter, nothing more." The word stung, igniting a flame of determination within Jake. "That's where you're wrong. Being a father and a CEO are intertwined for me. Mia pushes me to do better, to be better. If you think that diminishes my capability, you've underestimated both of us." A charged silence fell over the table, each man assessing the other's resolve. Jake's heart raced not from fear, but from the oppressive weight of conviction solidified by Mia's support. Leaving the cafe, Jake felt a volley of emotions: the thrill of standing up for himself, the fear of potential repercussions, but most importantly, an overwhelming sense of purpose for his daughter's future. He wouldn't let this moment define him. Instead, it could fortify the bond he was building with Mia. Back at home, he found Mia working through a code error on her laptop, a deep furrow on her brow. Something about her expression mirrored his own internal struggle. "Hey, Dad," she looked up, her eyes inquisitive. "How did it go?" He sat down beside her, a smile forming as he recalled the confrontation. "I told him the truth. It was time I stood firm." Mia's face brightened. "That's amazing. So what's next?" Jake hesitated, unsure of his next step while knowing that he had to raise the stakes for both their sakes. "Next, we finish that project we started together. And then," he paused, letting the moment stretch. "We pitch it differently. Show them what a dad and daughter duo can achieve." As they began working side by side, typing lines of code and encouraging one another, Jake felt a spark of hope. But lurking beneath the excitement was the nagging reminder of the upcoming board meeting, the moment when everything could either solidify their bond or shatter it completely. The stakes had never been higher, and the determination inside him built to a crescendo. As they both worked late into the night, a thought flashed. Would he fully embrace vulnerability and risk everything for this chance at success? The time had come to face the consequences of balancing fatherhood and ambition. Tomorrow was the board meeting, and Jake had to make it count. Would he rise as both CEO and father, or would he lose everything? As the first rays of sunlight crept through the curtains, Jake felt the weight of the day ahead bearing down on him like a physical force. The board meeting was merely hours away, yet it loomed larger than any looming deadline he had ever faced. This was more than just a presentation, this was an opportunity to redefine his role, both as a CEO and a father. While Mia busily typed her code, Jake moved through the kitchen, mechanically preparing breakfast. His mind swirled with potential outcomes. What if the board rejected their project outright? What if they dismissed him as a father CEO, same as his former colleague? Each scenario wrapped its icy fingers around his resolve, squeezing tighter with every passing moment. "Dad?" Mia broke into his thoughts. Jake turned to find her watching him closely, a mug of steaming coffee in her hands. "Are you okay? You look nervous." He smiled, but it did little to ease the turmoil beneath. Just thinking about how today could change everything. Her expression shifted then, the weight of understanding settling on her young brow. You're really worried about what they think, aren't you? Especially after what happened with that guy. It surprised him how perceptive she was. I guess I am, he admitted, trying to be honest without burdening her. But I need to show you that I can do both. I want to be the best for us. Mia's brow furrowed slightly. But what about being yourself? When you talked to him, you were strong. Don't just show them what you can do, show them who you are. Her words resonated, striking a chord deep within him. It wasn't just about the outcome anymore, it was about embracing all aspects of his identity. Wasn't that what he had learned in the cafe? His personal life and professional goals didn't have to exist in separate worlds. They could enrich one another. As they finished breakfast, a new resolve built up inside him. Perhaps it wasn't merely a matter of proving himself to the board. Perhaps today was about showing Mia what true leadership and authenticity looked like. When they arrived at the office, Jake felt an electric surge of adrenaline. The large conference room felt daunting, filled not only with unfamiliar faces but also the weight of expectations. As he stepped inside, every pair of eyes turned toward him. Board members leaned forward in their chairs, anticipation palpable in the air. He briefly glanced at Mia seated in the corner, her presence grounding him. It was her trust, her belief, that ignited the flicker of courage within him. Thank you all for being here, he began, his voice steady. Today, we're not just presenting another project. We're sharing a vision, one that reflects a partnership fueled by passion, determination, and the unbreakable bond between a father and daughter. As he laid out their project, Jake felt the sincerity of his words weighing heavy on him. Each slide was infused with not just statistics but stories, moments from late-night sessions spent debugging, laughs shared over code-crammed laptops, and the invaluable lessons learned together. He cast a glance toward Mia. Her eyes sparkled with pride, and for the first time that morning, his anxiety seemed to dissolve. As he spoke about their idea, he didn't just present numbers or graphs, he revealed a vision, a future. The questions that followed weren't as challenging as he had anticipated. Instead, they were inquiries spurred by curiosity, genuine interest in the innovations they had crafted together. It struck him that by merging his identities, he infused new life into his career. The meeting concluded with applause, a response he had almost dared not hope for. As he soaked in the validation, he found Mia's eyes, shining with admiration. Jake left the boardroom feeling buoyed, yet one pivotal thought hovered at the edge of his consciousness: would they venture forward as a cohesive unit? As they walked out of the building, Mia turned to him, her expression a hopeful blend of excitement and anticipation. Did you feel that? We did it, Dad. A grin split his face. We did, but there's something I want to discuss further. With her brow cocked questioningly, Jake felt a fresh wave of determination. If we're going to take this success to the next level, we need to think bigger, perhaps even an actual partnership beyond this project. Before he could elaborate, a sudden commotion interrupted them. Another board member rushed over, his expression frantic. Jake! We need to talk immediately. There's a situation that could change everything. As urgency flooded the air, Jake's heart raced. What now awaited them on the horizon, and would it challenge everything they had just accomplished? Jake's pulse quickened as he processed the board member's urgent tone. Anxiety resurfaced, twisting in his stomach. Execution usually involved calculated decisions, but now he was navigating through chaos. He gestured for Mia to wait and stepped aside with the panicked member, his mind racing with possibilities. What's going on? He asked, adjusting his focus, willing himself to remain composed. The investor we were counting on, the board member gasped, pulled out. They're funding a different project instead. A wave of dread washed over Jake. This could jeopardize everything they had achieved moments ago. Not just their project, but Mia's and his dream. Have they shared why? He inquired, hoping to glean some insight. They're saying our approach lacks scale. We need to come up with a revised pitch that addresses this immediately. Can you lead this conversation? The weight of the request crashed down on him. Of course, he nodded, but self-doubt clawed at his confidence. Would his ideas hold up to scrutiny again? He turned back towards Mia, whose face reflected concern. She stood aloof, clutching a piece of her coding project, her earlier excitement now replaced with uncertainty. He had shielded her from much of the corporate pressure, but as challenges mounted, it felt increasingly necessary to bring her in. Mia, he called gently, motioning for her to join him. There's a situation that just emerged. I want your thoughts. The conversation they planned to have transformed into a crisis brainstorming session. It made sense to engage her. Not only did she provide fresh perspectives, but together they could form a powerful alliance. Jake prepared his mind to anchor the chaos while allowing her creativity to blossom. I know this sounds overwhelming, he began, observing her body language, but what does the project lack from a user perspective? If we were the audience, what would we want to see? Mia's eyes lit up, a spark ignited by the challenge. Maybe we can highlight its unique advantages more clearly, she suggested. Instead of trying to appeal broadly, we can focus on specific issues it solves for potential users. Like personalizing the experience to coach our users better. In that moment, Jake felt a wave of relief, her innate understanding of the target audience shone brightly. It was a reminder that he wasn't just a father or a CEO, he could be a collaborator. Encouraged, he began to see their next steps. We need to leverage our story and our bond, he proposed, invigorated by her input. Authenticity sells, especially because we're carving out something personal. Mia nodded eagerly, moving closer as she began to sketch an outline of a new presentation. Each idea drew them deeper into collaboration, restoring a sense of momentum that had suddenly evaporated. As they worked side by side, Jake felt an unfamiliar excitement. This wasn't a setback, it could be a second chance. But as they delved deeper, a stark realization emerged: they weren't just fighting for their project alone. They were wrestling against the perception of their blend of identities, father and professional, and the doubt he had faced earlier loomed large again. Shadows of vulnerability crept in, the door to the conference room swung open, another voice cutting through their momentum: Jake, the others want to see you now. As he stood, the uncertainty gnawed at him deeper. Was aiming for authenticity the right approach? Or would it weaken their case? Gathering his thoughts felt paramount, but a nagging fear lingered. Would the board understand that their personal connection added depth rather than detracted from their credibility? This is it, he thought, his heart racing as he glanced at Mia. We've got to be ready to fight for this vision. With Mia's gaze on him, he stepped toward the conference room, aware that the weight of a new beginning lay just ahead. What awaited once inside was an opportunity to confront not only their critics but the critical challenge of proving that his dual role could be their greatest strength. Jake wasn't just fighting for approval now, he was staking everything on the authenticity he and Mia were beginning to champion together, an undeniable bond that would redefine their future. But would they be prepared for the clashes awaiting them, and could they transform this moment of vulnerability into a pivotal breakthrough? Jake pushed the conference room door open, stepping into an environment thick with tension. The faces of the board members were a mix of concern and skepticism, concern that mirrored the daunting uncertainty that churned within him. Jake surveyed the room, reminding himself of 5 simple words: authenticity, collaboration, vision, resilience, and belief. The chair at the head of the table beckoned, its authority filling the air. As he took his seat, Jake noticed Mia lingering just outside the door, her posture radiating confidence despite the upheaval. He took a deep breath, channeling her energy. We need to talk about our revised pitch, he began, addressing the board, trying to conceal the tremor in his voice. I understand we've hit a crossroads, but I believe our approach doesn't lack scale, it simply requires a new perspective. Skepticism swirled in the air. Board member after board member shared pointed questions, each one a new jolt of self-doubt that pulled at the threads of his composure. Jake, how can we convince our investors that our solution has the needed scalability? One asked. It was a question that clawed at him, threatening to unravel the argument he was desperately trying to weave. Taking a moment, he encapsulated their earlier brainstorming session with Mia in mind, fortifying his resolve with their collective vision. Instead of competing on a broad spectrum, he articulated, we will zero in on our user experience. We will showcase how our product can adapt to individual needs, enhancing value through personalization. Nodding heads hadn't fully emerged, yet he felt some of the tension dissipating. He pressed on, knowing he was now riding the delicate line between professionalism and genuine engagement. People are drawn to what resonates with them personally. We're poised to redefine how users relate to our technology. Together, Mia and I can present a case that does not simply list features but conveys a relatable story that unites user experiences with our company's mission. At that moment, he saw a shimmer of recognition in Mia's eyes through the door. It was a reminder that the journey was collaborative, they were in this fight together. This thought reinvigorated him, grounding his scattered thoughts back to purpose. Then, a firm voice interrupted his flow. But how do we sell this emotional narrative without losing our professionalism? This is a corporate pitch, Jake. That question lingered, reaching deeper into the raw underbelly of his fears. He felt an erratic pulse in his chest, triggered by a dawning truth. Hadn't authenticity been the enduring thread that stitched their project together? In connecting with our audience, we don't stray from professionalism, we elevate it. Trust is built on understanding, and if we fail to introduce ourselves as a human, emotionally driven entity, we risk remaining corporate facelessness. Murmurs began to arise, some members whispering amongst themselves. Jake noticed the shift, the softening of rigid personas as they considered his perspective. Hints of curiosity unfolded among the board, curiosity he knew they would only sustain if he provided actionable insights. Together, Mia and I represent a new model, he continued, leveraging the personal. We are a father and daughter who face challenges alongside innovators. If we can demonstrate our shared journey and the innovation born from our bond, investors will see more than profit, they will see potential rooted in relatability. They will support a vision they can believe in. As he finished, an unyielding silence settled over the room. His heart raced with anticipation. Now it was time for the verdict, yet a nagging discomfort twisted within him. Each board member's gaze felt like a spotlight, a judgment awaiting to be delivered. Could their emotional sincerity truly be the anchor they needed, or would it be the very factor that cost them everything? Before he could even process the incoming response, a resolve emerged within him, a newfound commitment to own his journey uniquely. One that melded personal narratives with the ambition that propelled his professional aspirations. And as he anticipated their critique, a different thought struck him. What if Mia's innovative ideas could steer the conversation beyond their immediate setback? It was time to unearth her unique contributions fully. But would he be ready to maneuver through the intricate dance of corporate pressure to ensure her voice resonated amid business demands? With the decision looming, he inwardly questioned if the board was prepared to embrace a new era defined by authenticity, or would they cling to their old paradigms? Jake sat at the table, the silence swallowing the air around him. Each board member appeared deep in thought, their expressions morphing as they processed what he had just delivered. The weight of their scrutiny felt heavier than it had moments before. He shifted in his seat, glancing toward the door where Mia had stood just moments ago, her distant smile still flickering in his mind. He needed to rally not just for the pitch, but to rally for Mia, for their approach, and for the belief that they could harness their differences to innovate dangerously. How long had he clung to the edges of professionalism, afraid to embrace their unique bond? Mia wasn't just an idea, she embodied the rejuvenation he craved for himself and the company. It was time to activate that truth fully. Perhaps it would help to walk through how our narrative could function in practice, Jake said, eyeing a few board members who appeared engaged now. We can develop a pilot program tailoring our technology to specific users, allowing us to chart real-life success stories. This fosters personal connection not only with our product but with our brand ethos. He noted the board's shifting dynamics, intrigued by his approach. One woman, seated at the far end, was nodding, seemingly impressed. He could almost sense a crack forming in their preconceived notions. But doubt crept back. Was the board still on edge, or had they shifted into a probing mode? Sensing momentum, Jake leaned in, addressing the woman directly. If we form partnerships with select users, we can amplify their experiences. Each narrative they provide will enhance our pitch's emotional resonance. This is not just about sales, it's an opportunity to set a new benchmark in engagement. More murmurs, this time accompanied by brighter faces. Yet, a familiar fear flickered in Jake's mind. What if they deemed his ideas unorthodox? He had never danced on the edge of corporate expectation before, and this felt terrifyingly exhilarating. Jake, another board member, broke in again, skepticism woven into his features. Isn't it risky to put so much emphasis on a narrative rather than on the product itself? Investors usually crave numbers, metrics. The question was sharp, cutting through the hope beginning to unfurl in him. And that's valid, Jake replied, tapping into the burning determination within. But innovation thrives in narrative. Metrics may inform decisions, but they don't inspire trust. If an investor sees a user thriving, sharing success not just in metrics, but in life, then they're more likely to see the potential for profit. He hoped that by focusing on emotional storytelling, he could bridge the divide between traditional corporate culture and the authentic messaging he wished to convey. The board members exchanged glances, the atmosphere thickening with contemplation. Each moment of silence felt like a countdown. Would they accept this vision, or would they revert to the comfort of the status quo? Then Mia strode in, confidently taking her place beside her father. In that instant, the world shrank to just the two of them. Her energy pulsated through him, invigorating his resolve. "Mia, what do you think?" Jake said, gesturing towards her. Taking a deep breath, she squared her shoulders, her eyes shining. "Dad is right. We need to embrace our differences. My peers don't just want technology, they want to be heard. They want to feel that they matter, and our approach could lead to something profoundly transformative." With her words, something remarkable happened. A crack in the board's resistance seemed to widen. Reactions varied, some nods turned into full enthusiasm while others appeared contemplative yet intrigued. This was what he craved: unfiltered insight, collaboration not just from Mia but from the entire process. But as the conversation deepened, Jake's gaze caught the clock ticking on the wall. There was only so much time left for their pitch. As his thoughts raced, he realized that he was on the brink of something much larger than a presentation. It was a moment of reckoning. The clock was winding down. They would soon need to deliver a final policy about the significance of their unique approach. But as Jake looked around the room, he felt the undercurrents of something unresolved, a tension that begged to be spoken. He could harness it. "Before we decide," Jake began, steeling himself, "I believe we should confront what really drives us. Are we prepared to risk reshaping our journey to make space for innovation that truly resonates?" The room went still, the air charged with uncertainty. He had thrown down a gauntlet, and he sensed it was a challenge that demanded response. Would they answer the call for authenticity, or slip back into the familiar, merely to maintain tradition? The seconds stretched into an eternity, the board's silence amplifying the pulse in Jake's throat. He studied their expressions, searching for a flicker of approval or the familiar lines of dissent. The room felt like a cauldron, bubbling with tension and unvoiced opinions. Mirrored glances darted between board members, and each bead of sweat on Jake's brow was a testament to his growing inner turmoil. Mia stood resolute beside him, an unyielding presence that reminded him he was not alone. But as reassuring as she was, he knew it was on him to forge the path forward. Taking a moment to visualize success, Jake scanned the room again. The board seemed to concertedly inch toward the edge of the abyss he had thrown them into. "Imagine," Jake ventured, "a platform where users not only report on our product but also collaborate with us to shape its trajectory. Their narratives can become part of our value proposition." The motion was bold, almost desperate. As he spoke, the words churned within him, igniting hope and fear in a symbiotic dance. Would they resonate with his vision, or would it be dismissed? Just as he anticipated negativity, one of the members, a sharply dressed man with spectacles, spoke up. This is quite a departure from our traditional approach, Jake. Are you ready to genuinely pivot? You know the risk involved with such a subjective model. The skepticism stung, his heart pounding in his ears. What did he know about navigating these uncharted waters? Yet, as a single dad, Jake had navigated the unpredictable tides of parenthood more times than he could count. Raising Mia had revealed his resilience, it had birthed a creator within him, unwilling to bow to conventional standards. Absolutely, he asserted, allowing assurance to weave through his voice. As a parent, knowing what resonates with her generations has opened my eyes. Innovation is a reflection of stories told and lives lived. We must amplify those voices. An unexpected reaction followed. The board members leaned in, as if collectively contemplating the potential of voices being amplified, feeling the raw energy of connection. He didn't need perfect numbers or polished metrics alone, he needed passion and commitment. Just like how each moment he spent with Mia taught him the value of authenticity over facade. Mia had chosen to walk with him in this moment, and he recognized this was their opportunity to cement something far beyond his ambitions, a shared purpose for a greater good. Can we also challenge our current metrics then? She interjected, her enthusiasm igniting a stimulus. What if we measured our impact not by just performance but by the relationships we build? Are we brave enough to redefine success? The idea hung heavy in the air, and he noticed a few nods of consideration. Jake felt a surge of adrenaline, this was the spark he sought. Her conviction was infectious. But then a voice cut through the invigorating atmosphere, a board member who had remained quiet until now. That all sounds wonderful, but we might lose sight of financial gain. Risk and reward need to balance. Jake inhaled deeply, anxiety gnawing at the edges of his clarity. But even in this moment of doubt, he couldn't retreat. What if we align our metrics with our mission? He challenged, feeling the urgency building. Our bottom line impacts lives, too. We should evaluate whether pursuing authenticity cultivates not just profit, but loyalty. The board's energy shifted, with murmured exchanges rippling through the group. They were visibly on the cusp of a breakthrough or a retreat. As the clock inched closer to the meeting's end, the tension reached a fever pitch, and Jake's heart raced. It was now or never. He was not here to beg for a change, he was setting the groundwork to inspire one. Let us take a risk for something that can redefine our industry, he declared, surprising himself with the confidence surging through him. He turned back to Mia, eyes locked in silent agreement. They were in this together, and failure was not an option, this was their moment to carve out a space to rise above the conventional. But lurking questions haunted him, had they truly garnered their trust? Were they ready to rewrite the rules? Then he felt it, an electrifying moment, the faint sound of pens scratching notes, nods of agreement, a shift toward a willingness to venture into the unknown. However, a new wave of uncertainty washed over him. Would they give in to the safe comfort of traditional lines of metrics, or would they embrace the risk of a narrative-centric model that embraced vulnerability? Amidst the conversation and rising hope, one thought crystallized, echoing in the back of his mind. The time had come to face the genuine crux of his journey, would he have the courage to lead them and himself into a transformative future? The boardroom chatter swirled around Jake as he gathered his thoughts amid a whirlwind of emotions. Some members exchanged excited whispers, while others tilted their heads skeptically at the ideas unfolding. Their responses danced like shadows in his mind, both encouraging and daunting. He realized that this wasn't merely a pitch for a new direction, it was a test of his own depth and tenacity. Jake pushed back a creeping sense of inadequacy. He had lived with uncertainty and risk in his personal life as a single dad. He had learned to pivot amidst chaos, to reframe failure as a stepping stone rather than a dead end. Yet here he stood in a realm that felt foreign, as if navigating through an intricate maze with no assured exit. Mia's presence steadied him, the way she stood with her arms folded across her chest, her gaze unwavering. It was almost as if she had internalized his dreams and hopes, pushing him towards a reckoning that went deeper than business strategy. He thought of her passion for creativity and authenticity, how that reflected in her artwork, and it spurred him forward. "We're at a crossroads," he acknowledged, his voice now resonating with the authority he wished to embody. "The traditional model we cling to is like a crutch, it might keep us upright, but it limits our growth. We have a chance to create something revolutionary, a living approach that adapts to our audience." One board member, the skeptical man with spectacles, shifted in his seat. "Living approaches, Jake. Sounds like a buzzword for uncertainty. How do we monetize that?" Jake's pulse quickened. He had expected this pushback. Taking a breath, he leaned forward, his determination hardening. "Monetization follows meaning. Engage customers beyond transactions, build community, and you will see organic loyalty develop. Imagine if clients saw themselves reflected in our brand. Wouldn't that deepen their commitment?" He noticed slight nods, and the hairs on his neck raised in cautious optimism. Maybe they were listening, maybe he was planting seeds of a much-needed transformation, yet the internal voices of self-doubt roared, each casting their votes in his mind. Who did he think he was, challenging the status quo with emotional appeals? What authority did he possess to lead such a monumental shift? He straightened, ignoring the rising tide of fear, his conviction aligning with his intentions. "I learned from my daughter that life is richer in its messy authenticity. As a father, I want to be a role model for her, a guide who does more than just comply with numbers and traditional metrics. It's time we become a story that resonates, not just an entity that functions." In that moment, he realized the stakes reached far beyond professional ambition. It was about the legacy he crafted, not only for himself but for Mia and the environment they navigated together. Suddenly, he was struck by a revelation: his vulnerability had become his strength. He had the potential to reshape narratives not just within the company but within himself as a leader. As uncertain as the path seemed, he realized he had been cultivating a wealth of untapped ability, the capability to inspire through authenticity and courage. The board seemed to pause, visibly weighing his words. Confidence surged through him there, sparking hope and determination. This meeting was evolving into more than just an examination of strategy, it was a catalyst for change. As the pulse of quiet contemplation settled in, his gaze shifted to Mia, who smiled with a light that illuminated the murky doubts within him. There lay his answer, believing in himself, and in the vision crafted for those he cared most about. But as the board began to chatter again, a new voice emerged, firm and unyielding. "Are you truly ready to take this on, Jake? If you're pushing for this change, it will demand your full commitment. Are you willing to face backlash? This isn't a game, it's your career on the line." Jake's heart raced. Did he truly grasp the magnitude of what he suggested? What if this endeavor unraveled everything he had worked for? The gravity of the moment felt heavier than before, threatening to crush him under its weight. Could he afford to lose it all for a radical shift? Or would his gamble give way to a legacy worth crafting? The room fell silent, tension thickening as he prepared to answer the daunting question lived within him. His courage stood at the precipice of resolution. Would he finally embrace the leader within and risk it all for a vision born from authenticity? Jake's throat tightened as he contemplated the weight of the question hovering in the air. After a long pause, he took a steadying breath and locked eyes with the skeptical board member. "Yes," he declared, the words coming out with unexpected clarity. "I'm ready. This isn't just about me, it's about the future of our company and the legacy I want to build, not just for myself, but for my daughter." A charged silence filled the room. Jake could feel each gaze piercing him, some filled with disbelief, others hinting at newfound respect. The board's reaction swung like a pendulum, the anticipation thickening the air. Would his revelation land on fertile ground? "Then tell us how," another board member urged, her tone both intrigued and challenging, as if she found an ember worth fanning into a flame. He dove deeper, his pulse racing not out of fear, but exhilaration. "We need to embrace a holistic approach that includes our customers in every part of our journey. We'll create platforms for feedback, interactive experiences, and collaborative efforts that allow them to feel ownership in our brand. We need to tell stories that resonate not just as marketing tools but as shared experiences." His voice swelled with conviction. This isn't merely about selling a product. It's about creating a narrative that people are proud to belong to. If they connect with us on a deeper level, they won't think twice about choosing our services over others. Murmurs erupted. Some nodding in agreement, others still skeptical, testing the resilience of his vision against their ingrained beliefs about business. Steel began to replace the fear coursing through him. This was it. He needed to be clear, assertive, and above all, authentic. Think about it, he continued, pacing slightly as adrenaline coursed through his veins. We are in a world where consumers expect more than just products. They want to see companies take a stand on social issues, be agents of change, and reflect the values they themselves hold dear. Let's initiate that change ourselves. Questions began to fly his way, probing. Jake answered each with care, anchoring his responses in real-world examples where brands transformed themselves by integrating purpose. He saw the board's skepticism melt away in real time, replaced by glimpses of acceptance and hope. After what felt like an eternity, Jake paused, taking a moment to absorb the energy around him. Reality hit him hard. He was building something significant, discussing possibilities that pushed the boundaries of conventional thought. Yet doubt still loomed just beyond the horizon. Could he maintain this momentum? What if the rug was pulled from beneath him? As the meeting wound down, one final question arose, an inquiry tinged with caution. And if we fail to meet these high expectations, what will that mean for you, Jake? The question echoed in the recesses of his mind, awakening a deeper fear. What did failure really mean? He reflected on his journey as a father, where each stumble taught him resilience and versatility. Then we adapt, learn, and reframe our strategy. Failure is merely a lesson, and I've learned that well. The room was now lit with an urgency he hadn't felt before, the board truly engaged in his vision. Each face reflected the battle between past practices and innovative strategies. In a place where he had once felt like an imposter, he now stood as a beacon of potential, a catalyst for change. Yet Jake understood that commitment meant not just words but action. He would have to lead not just in strategy but in spirit. With every fiber of his being, he felt the gravitational shift within him, grasping this opportunity to transform not only the company but his identity. Wrapped in legacy and purpose. The arches of uncertainty still loomed, however. He knew he would confront resistance, navigating the complexities of ingrained habits versus forward-thinking ideals. What remained was the daunting prospect of how far he would go to turn this vision into reality and keep the board aligned with his newfound purpose. Suddenly a text notification pierced the midst of his thoughts. It was from Mia, a reminder of the unwavering support he held close. Her innocent encouragement rekindled his resolve. Don't forget the magic moments, Daddy. And with that reminder, he recognized a pivotal truth. The real magic was also in the moments he would create here at work, guiding the organization toward authenticity. Jake couldn't help but consider the challenge ahead. Could he balance this monumental task while being a present father? The path was fraught with uncertainties, but he was now all in. As the board began to disperse, Jake felt an electric pulse of determination surge through him. This was not just a shift, it was an awakening, one that would define who he really was. With each step he took towards the exit, he realized he was facing a new battle. Within the corridors of corporate skepticism, could he keep this flame alive? What challenges awaited him as he stepped into the uncharted realm of leadership? The answers danced just out of reach, beckoning him forward into the fray. Would he find the strength within to embrace this journey for both himself and Mia? As Jake stood at the threshold of a new era, the bustle outside the conference room echoed in his ears. The moment had come to transition from mere survival to thriving, both as a father and a CEO. Over the past weeks, he had wrestled with his identity, but standing firm before the board now left him with a profound sense of ownership. With Mia by his side, proud and resilient, Jake felt the adrenaline still coursing through his veins from the meeting. They had ignited a flame of hope among the board, transforming skepticism into tangible curiosity. Jake recognized that their journey extended beyond this singular project. It was about fostering a culture that embraced vulnerability, connection, and innovation. Back in the office, amidst the usual chaos of tech buzz and clattering keyboards, Jake gathered his team around. Their most significant triumph was not merely approval from the board, it was the fire ignited within the culture of their company, creating a ripple effect that extended beyond numbers. "We're embarking on a new journey together," he announced, his voice echoing off the office walls. "We are not just a tech firm, we are a community dedicated to creating connections, ones that elevate what we stand for and enhance the user experience." Encouragement lit the faces around him. Ideas began to flow freely, translating his vision into actionable strategies. They drafted plans for user engagement initiatives, each reinforcing the narrative that linked their product to authentic experiences. Jake found joy in empowering his team, recognizing the stories within them that could merge with the company narrative, a tapestry rich in diversity and potential. Meanwhile, Mia thrived in her coding project. As their bond deepened with late-night discussions about code and life, Jake saw her confidence blossom. Late into evenings, he would watch her craft intricate programs and tackle challenges with patience and artistry. She taught him as much about leadership as he taught her about dedication. The pride blossoming within him was not just about her achievements but the collaboration that strengthened their relationship. He became not only a father but a mentor in an inspiring journey. The weeks progressed, and in the wake of their collaboration, they launched the project with immense success. The feedback was overwhelmingly positive. Users resonated not just with the product's features but with the personal stories that enhanced their engagement. Investors began to pay attention, intrigued not just by the metrics but the authentic narratives behind the brand. Jake's heart soared, they achieved what many deemed impossible. Yet, as the accolades poured in, Jake reflected on the lessons learned through this exhilarating chapter. Standing in the sunlight filtering through his office window one quiet morning, he grasped the gravity of his evolution. He no longer struggled with the dichotomy of being a father and a CEO. He had harmonized both identities into a cohesive whole. A few months later, during a strategic industry conference, Jake delivered a keynote speech about the importance of authentic leadership in technology. They had gone from a parent-child project to embodying a transformative force in the industry. "Being authentic in our leadership," he shared, scanning the captivated audience, "means showing our vulnerabilities and letting our passions guide us. It's not merely about balancing two roles, it's about bringing our true selves into every single aspect of our lives." To his surprise, when he finished, applause erupted, echoing like a gratifying affirmation of all they had accomplished. His eyes glistened, proudly finding Mia among the crowd. She beamed, and at that moment, he recognized the full circle of his journey. The inseparable connection between his roles had become his strongest asset, not a hindrance. Jake had conquered the doubts that once loomed heavily over him. In doing so, he had achieved profound professional growth, firmly establishing himself as a leader who was respected both in corporate circles and at home. He cherished the wisdom gained through vulnerability, an invaluable lesson that would guide him forward. Now stepping into a future that felt bright and promising, Jake affirmed his desire to continue this path. He was more than a CEO, he was a role model, a father whose mission was to empower and inspire through authentic reflections of life, fostering creativity and connection one story at a time. As the echoes of the applause subsided, Jake felt an unwavering commitment to maintain this journey of growth both personally and professionally. In embracing his dual role, he had discovered the richest life had to offer: fulfillment, resilience, and the magic of meaningful connections. So, remember his journey as you embark on yours. Authenticity is your greatest strength, and now is the time to embrace it with both hands. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Trust us, it makes a difference. Comment your thoughts, reactions, and theories about the ending below. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this life-changing conclusion. You need to support the channel. This is the moment to show your dedication. Don't wait even one more second to share.